If you're interested in building your second brain, then you probably heard about CODE. CODE is an acronym that stands for Capture, Organize, Distill, and Express. But as a creator, I found this approach not only being unproductive, but also hurting my creativity. And in this video, I show you why. Hey, I'm Mike Giaro, and on this channel I help content creators level up their productivity. And at any time in this video, feel free to check out my free 7-day email course to build your second brain as a creator. It's the first link in the description. So one of the reasons you're taking notes is because you want to make sense of all the information you encounter. And if you're like me, you're probably consuming a lot of videos, books, or podcasts. The problem with CODE is that it does not solve the issue at its core, which is your information intake. Let me explain. Simply think of a Lamborghini with a clogged gas tank. No matter how powerful your engine is, you'll never be able to operate at full capacity with a clogged tank. So the first step in order to build an effective second brain, you have to get your information intake right. And as you can see, CODE does not start with information intake, aka consumption. It directly starts with the capturing phase. But when you think about it, capturing is just a step that comes after the information consumption phase, which means that if you're consuming too much or focusing on the wrong resources, CODE can't help. So in order to make sense of your notes, you need to get what happens before the capturing phase right. CODE does not help you get rid of information overload. In fact, it amplifies your bad consumption habits. Reason number 2. The second letter in CODE is an O, and it stands for organizing. But let me tell you this, nobody wants to organize information. We want to make sense of it. And every time you take a note, you have to go through the burden of classification. You constantly have to think about where you are going to put your note, either by using a tag or a folder. This is a complete waste of your creative potential because it leads to decision fatigue. Think of your energy and willpower as a tank. Every day you have a limited quantity available. So your goal is to preserve anything leaking out of this tank as much as you can to get more energy, focus, and willpower to dedicate to your deep work. But when you constantly have to classify your notes, then you're drilling tiny holes and spend more time on maintaining the system rather than using it to empower your productivity. So the more notes you have to process, the more time you spend on classifying, the less mental resources you have to make meaningful connections between your ideas that are already in your second brain. The solution to this classification maze is to stop classifying your notes. Instead, set up a self-organizing structure. I talk about that more in details in my free second brain course for content creators. It's the first link in the description. The third reason why CODE doesn't work is because it makes you waste precious time. Let's take a closer look at the two last stages, which are Distill and Express. The Distill phase implies using progressive summarization, where you distill every source by getting to its gist. It's a very similar approach to the Feynman technique. Simply put, you want to rewrite the information you've captured in your own words and only keep what's necessary. The reason why it works is that it helps you solidify the idea and make sure that you actually understand it. And as John Charles said, if you can't say it clearly, you don't understand it yourself. But now comes the question, why would you separate between Distill and Express? Because if you're in the midst of rewriting a book highlight, for example, then you're already expressing it in your own words. When you think about it, splitting the same process into two steps is just a waste of time. So one of the reasons why I'm able to produce a lot of content fast is that I'm distilling and expressing at the same time. This is why I'm able to simply copy and paste a lot of my notes into publishable pieces of content. And this is called leverage. And leverage is the essence of productivity and getting more things done. Reason number 4. If you recall, reason number 2 was all about decision making. The problem is that CODE forces you to classify. But classification does not only drain out your mental bandwidth, it also prevents you from coming up with unique ideas. Let me explain. When you classify your notes, you're putting invisible barriers between your ideas, which means that you classify every note into their specific discipline or field. So let's say I'm taking a note about a copywriting technique. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to classify this note with copywriting or something similar. But when you use tags and folders, You're training your brain to classify ideas to merely retrieve them. You don't allow yourself to combine unrelated ideas together. And this is exactly what creativity is not about. Because creativity is about finding unrelated insights and connections between ideas from various fields. And as Steve Jobs famously said, creativity is just connecting things together. So the real deal is not to classify your notes. It's about being able to create a system that empowers linking your best ideas together. So now comes the question, is there a solution to this dilemma? You bet there is. The first step is to understand that you don't need a way to manage your note. You need a way to manage information as a whole, which includes the intake, the digestion, and the output. The second is that you need to get rid of classification in order to have more brain power to spark creative insights that you can then use when it comes to creating content. This is why I came up with a radically new way of personal knowledge management tied specifically for content creators and marketers. It's designed to help you create meaningful notes and help you achieve the best of your creative work in a simple and funny way. Want to learn more about it? It's the first link in the description.